Good Sunday morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee. Along with my colleague John North, I'm John Becker. We're here to recap the election that was and look ahead to 2024. To do that, we are joined by Chris Davis, who is the Administrator of Elections in Knox County. Thank you for being here, Chris.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
I'm going to introduce our panelist. Don Bosch is a lawyer and he also happens to be a Democrat.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Susan Richardson Williams is a Republican and runs her own PR firm.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's get straight to the totals. Wow. We all pushed for turnout and no one listened.
Seven people came.
Chris Davis, out of every 100 people in this election that could vote, it looks like about 15 did. Picture Neyland Stadium and 100,000 people who could vote and barely even one section full. What does that say?
Basically, your visitors showed up and they voted, and your home team did not, essentially. It's very disappointing. It's very disheartening. And ultimately, it's one of those things where, no matter what the outcome is, we hear people say, well, maybe the city's more progressive or maybe the city's more this or that. It's hard to get a gauge on it. You have 85,000 people that did not cast a vote and didn't bother to cast a vote. We had great weather. We had 14 days of early voting. We had 6 early voting locations, 12 hours on election day, beautiful weather other than the smoke. And frankly, people just didn't come out. And I think one of the things I think you and I talked about off air, 38,000 people registered in the city of Knoxville, ages 18 to 34, the future, if you will. Less than, at least through early voting, about 500-600 of those people early voted. And it's disheartening for the future, frankly, of the city.
Yeah, 18 to 34 is like 1 in every 100 actually cast a ballot. On the issues as well, I mean, we saw 4 of 9 council seats on this election. There were 2 contested, and then this historic judge race. We're going to get to the results with these guys before that, but still, a lot on the line in terms of who's going to decide what your police force looks like, what your roads are going to look like, your zoning, and your parks.
And as I've said many times, one of the common calls we get at the Election Commission, something happens in the community. Somebody builds something. Somebody doesn't build something. Somebody potholes, whatever it is, we get those calls. Who's my city council representative? Who's my county commissioner? Who's my state house rep? People don't think about these things until something happens to them, and this is a perfect indicator of why we should, as citizenry, go ahead and find out, because if you don't learn about your government, you're going to learn about your government the hard way.
John?
No, go ahead. Well, Chris, I know we've always talked about this, but one of the anomalies, call it as you will, of this election or this cycle of elections is it really is just a city election, and particularly when the mayor wins in the primary, as we had here, and there's not a hot contested mayor's race like there might be in another 4 years. Right. Is there anything we can do to possibly change this election date to pair it up with another election that gets more attention? And unfortunately, none of them get enough attention, but this is the lowest turnout election that we have of the 3 or 4 years that we vote, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Is there anything we can do that could mirror it up with a round of elections without having to change so much by way of term limits and things that affect city government?
At least county commission and county commission is elected in a presidential year, ever in the
as well as a gubernatorial year.
As well as gubernatorial, and you will have a large turnout for that.
Larger.
What prevents? Why can we not change? Is it just
you'd have to change the city charter first off. That's
We've
obvious.
done that.
That's an obvious piece, and that could be done again. Obviously, I think you have to look at is your sole goal to increase turnout? Is that it? Because I hear everything from it would save money.
It would save money,
but you look at 2 elections in the city of Knoxville every other year, obviously, will cost about between $400,000 and $500,000 out of a $300 million budget. The city spends a lot of money on a lot of things. I'm not sure that should be anybody's primary motivating factor. But on the flip side, change to a city charter, we could easily move that to an odd number. To an even number.
Well, the primary motivating factor should be, in fact, to get more people to vote, because just as you've said, these are the most important races that our community can vote on because it affects them day by day.
But I would also point out, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, when you look at the fact that right now you have your ballot, you've got items 1, 2, 3, and 4. You go in there, it was 5 races on the ballot. You put them on, just for sake of argument, an August ballot. You could be 25th. You could be 30th. When you have judges on there and state election, you could be all the way down at 60th. How many people undervote on ballots and don't vote? I think your turnout would go up. I don't know that it would go up substantially because you'd be way down ballot, number one. And number two, are you going to have a more educated electorate? I don't know that you are, and that's just I'm not just playing devil's
Can you
advocate.
remind our viewers, we had 15,000 in this election. What did we have a year ago in the county election?
County election, we had about 120 something for
120.
for your November election.
That's 120,000 versus 15,000.
Yes.
And I know that was a long ballot a year ago, and we heard that
Well,
complaint.
actually, that ballot was pretty short. But even for a city election, like an August election, you'll have 50, 60, 70,000. So you will dramatically, from what we have now, increase turnout if we go that route. There are pros and cons to both, but certainly that's one thing that could be done. Absolutely.
And we have heard in prior elections that there's too much on the ballot. So voters like it one way or the other.
We do, but I mean, I frankly, my personal opinion, I know Chris is right, he should not espouse an opinion, is fine, let's educate the voters. You guys as a network do a very good job of doing that. Other media outlets do. And hopefully, even if 60%, 70% of that big turnout engages and goes to the 60th item on that ballot, we're still way better than the 15,000 that voted.
Let's look quickly at 2024. Any hiccups, any problems that you see going ahead with an election that will be a busy one, no doubt.
Don't jinx him, John.
I
Good
think
going.
2024 is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a dogfight. You throw whatever adjective you want to use. We already have, and I know John's holding it up there,
I love it.
a plethora of candidates for all of our local offices. That does not include,
I hope
obviously.
we fill it out on both sides.
I think
will.
we're fine just the way we are, but
this
certainly
is all candidates in local races.
People
for
have
next
about a
year
month
already.
left to return their petition, pick up a petition, and none of that even includes, obviously, your candidates for president, but also particularly on the Republican ballot, your delegates, and each candidate having his or her delegates. It's a long ballot, and of course, anecdotally, you guys know when we go to March, we can tell who the Democrats are and the Republicans are in the booth because the Democrats are in about a minute, and the Republicans are in there.
A long time.
4 years ago, we were doing the wheel. This time, we're going to be checking the boxes.
Starting to change, though, isn't it? A few more Democratic candidates are emerging.
Oh no, I'm not talking about. I'm talking more about the number of races on the ballot.
Yes.
Certainly with the delegates versus the fact that the Democrats, I think, I can't give it a political opinion. I was just saying the Republicans have a lot more to choose from on the ballot.
Sure.
And it's going to take longer, I think, was my point.
Well, there's 82 potentials for each candidate that runs for president on the Republican side. So if we've got five or six,
I would go back 4
potentially
years
have
ago. I think there
400.
were 146 choices, and you got to pick as a Republican. You would pick 14 of those. That takes a while. Whether you're spinning a wheel or you're filling in a box, that takes a while.
That's why you get lost down ballot.
That's why when your name starts with a W,
My recurring theme will be
appreciate
a
it.
hamster.
Yes. Thank you for the time.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it, and we'll be back in touch certainly as we move into 2024. We're going to be back to break down what happened in this election, the candidates who won and the candidates who lost. Any surprises here, locally and nationally, coming back.